A silent procession to a hillside grave. 2 teenage girls are buried here. Family and friends gather to mark the end of the traditional 40-day period of mourning. A mother's grief laid bare. "Be at peace now," she says. "You're with God." There was nothing peaceful about the way 15-year-old Alfita died. She and her friends were ambushed on their way to school. They were killed and beheaded. At their Christian school on the outskirts of Poso, life goes on. The bus is new, part of extra security measures to protect the younger students. Morning assembly Sulawesi style. Carols in the early morning sun. But this Christmas, there's fear in the air.
Of course we're scared, even the teachers. Who wouldn't be scared knowing what's happened? We felt like we were being targeted, and for a while some children stopped coming to school. The buses help people feel a bit safer, but the big question for us is why? Why our children and not anyone else? Why children?
The schoolgirls were walking down this path on their way from their home village a short distance from here when they were attacked by men wearing ski masks and wielding machetes. 3 of them were killed here, their bodies mutilated. 2 severed heads were later found outside a police station, and a 3rd head was left on the porch of a house in a Christian community on the outskirts of town. But there was one girl who survived. Noviana Malewa is now under police protection at the family home. She was badly wounded but escaped the attackers by scrambling down the hillside. We weren't allowed to speak to her, but her older brother agreed to talk to us.
When I heard what happened, I felt upset, hurt and angry. I was close to all those girls. They were all like sisters to me. I'd known them since we were small. I asked myself why this had happened, and I was scared.
Do you think there might be a reaction in the local community here, that perhaps some people might want to take matters into their own hands?
I don't think so, because we've experienced that kind of thing before. We've been restrained up to now, and I think people around here agree that we should let the police handle it.
Poso was the scene of bitter fighting between Christians and Muslims 5 years ago. At least 1,000 people were killed. Churches, mosques and homes razed to the ground. Eyewitnesses speak of mutilated bodies floating in the river. One of the bloodiest single incidents was here, Walisongo Muslim boarding school. A Christian group attacked without warning, killing at least 100 people. Ilham was a young assistant teacher at the time. He shows me the hole where 8 badly burned bodies were found. He was slashed by a machete, but managed to escape. Others fled into the jungle and were hunted down. The experience changed Ilham forever. He joined a group of Mujahideen fighters.
I heard that people who had fought in Afghanistan came here. They came here to join our war, but it was difficult to get to know them. They didn't give their real names. I said to some of them who came from Java, maybe I could come and visit you. Where do you live? But they didn't want to tell us. They were very secretive. At that time during the conflict, we welcomed anyone who came to help us. They helped Muslims maintain their dignity here. Even if it meant we would die, we had to fight back.
There's strong evidence that Muslim groups came to this area at the height of the conflict and set up training camps around this lake. Among them was Jemaah Islamiyah, the group now known to have been responsible for the Bali nightclub bombings and subsequent attacks in Indonesia. The conflict here had become a rallying call for jihadist groups with a wider agenda. As the conflict escalated, propaganda videos like this began to circulate. They were made partly to encourage fresh recruits, but also to persuade donors in the Middle East to help finance the war. And it proved effective. Different people came for different reasons, but they all saw potential in Poso.
Well, certainly the main motivation was to actually go there and defend their fellow Muslims. But in addition, they could get actual combat experience for the broader international jihad, and I think some of them saw it in those terms. I think there was also a motivation that they wanted to actually begin the process of establishing an Islamic state, or some of them believed that this was an opportunity. And if they could only establish an Islamic community in Poso after the fighting, they could then expand this more broadly and work toward creating a broader Islamic entity.
So the recent violence now, is that still the work of outsiders, or is this the local recruits now doing what they were trained to do?
Overwhelmingly, the violence going on now is local, except that there are always outside groups that are coming in to help out. And they come in to help out because they see an ongoing jihad in Poso, first of all, as an opportunity to provide additional skills and recruits for people for the broader movement, but also because they really believe that the jihad isn't over yet, that the war that started in 2000 and 2001, in their view, is ongoing, that Christians continue to be a threat, and therefore, in order to protect the Muslim community, you have to mount preemptive attacks against the enemy.
So should the beheadings of the schoolgirls be viewed as part of a continuing cycle rather than an isolated act of brutality? Could the roots of the latest violence lie in the earlier conflict? It's certainly true that despite a peace agreement brokered in December 2001, sporadic attacks have continued. In May this year, 2 bombs exploded in this market in nearby Tentena, a mainly Christian town. 22 people were killed, more than 50 injured. Because the recent violence appears to be targeting Christians, some local Muslims have found themselves under intense scrutiny. Adnan Arsal, a Muslim community leader who runs this Islamic boarding school, was a signatory to the 2001 peace deal. He's known to have links to radical groups. The police recently raided the school looking for suspects. Mr. Arsal says he and his colleagues are being unfairly victimized.
The way I see it, the school, Muslim communities and I are being set up. I think there's some sort of agenda to discredit us and to discredit Islam in general. So the blame will fall on Muslims and we'll be labelled terrorists. But look at our school. Do you really think that anyone here could carry out such a killing? A professional killing? To cut off the head of a person and carry it several kilometres away? Muslims are taught not to kill just anyone. There's a special code. Clearly outsiders did this. I've told the police if you find the perpetrators and process them properly, I'm 100% behind you. But you have to do it according to the law, not just make it up.
There is now a huge security presence in and around Poso. Even our small hotel had its own police guard. But checkpoints like this couldn't prevent a second attack. 2 more teenage girls were shot and wounded by men riding a motorbike. The police are under immense pressure to stop the violence and bring those responsible to justice. But wrongful arrests and mistreatment of prisoners in the past served to inflame local sentiments. The recently promoted police chief knows he has to tread carefully.
We have to make sure we have a really strong case that we can prove in court and that we can prove to the public. We have to make absolutely sure we get the right people. Right now we can see there's an organised group behind this who want to make trouble. They want to keep Poso insecure. Both communities, Christians and Muslims, are tired of the violence, but the people behind it want to keep things unstable, probably so they can carry on their corruption and make money. But this is terrorism, because what these people did, the beheadings, goes far beyond revenge.
Conspiracy, corruption, religion, revenge. It's a potent brew. Poso's ruined buildings are a vivid reminder of how explosive the mix can be.